Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Greatly appreciated. Thank you, thank you. Let's get going right on time today. How about that? So this is Fresh. If you're new to us, welcome. So glad to see you. We are a manufacturer of acoustical products. We make products for the ceilings, walls, uh, acoustical lighting, as well as some dividers. My name is Slavi Younger, and I will be the one walking you through the class today. A little bit about my background. I am one of the original founders, co-founders of Fresh, and what I've really spent a lot of time doing is hanging out with you guys. So I do a little bit of branding, marketing, that kind of stuff, and also spend quite a bit of time on the education, the product and acoustical education. So that's why you guys see me a lot on these. So today we're going to continue down the series we started last month, which is specifically on sound, understanding of sound, right? So the one today is about reverb. We will be talking about what is it, how is it created, what are the differences between reverb and echo, and how to mitigate the most common issues. As you guys know, I usually turn the camera on at the beginning so you guys know it's a real human there, but I like to turn it off because, you know, I just then end up looking at myself. It's very distracting. So this was my intro. Let's get straight into the class. All right. All right. So first what we'll talk about is a sound wave. What is a sound wave, right? That is what is what is moving through the air. And I know I went a little nuts here with the amount of different visuals I put in here, but I was trying to think, how do I show you guys what sound wave looks like, because we don't get to see it, right? It's not like a ray of light, right? What is it actually doing? So sound wave is, you can kind of think of it almost like a slinky, right? So when the noise is first made, what the sound wave does, it affects the air particles closest to it, and then those air particles move the particles next to it, next to it, next to it, next to it, right? So and it keeps doing this until it reaches your ears, and it actually vibrates your ear canal, and that's really how you can hear, right? So this is sort of what's happening, right? Anytime we're talking and you notice that it's being made in a space, we are essentially moving the sound wave is moving through the air, right? So that's kind of the the imagery that you can think about. And if you didn't like any of that, I decided to, you gotta use your kids, why not, right? So this is actually Emilia throwing a ball against the wall, and what I would like you guys to imagine that instead of it being a ball, it being, let's say, her speaking, this is kind of how it would work, right? The sound waves are moved out of your mouth, and then all the environment, all the parts around it is what it bounces back and brings it back to it, right? So as the sound waves are created and start moving through the space and start interacting with the environment, right? And we kind of touched on this before many times over, because this is sort of the fundamentals of it, right? What is it that can happen to sound waves, right? It can transmit through things, it can reflect from hard surfaces, it can absorb in a porous surfaces, it can be diffracted, and all of these things decide, essentially what the space will sound like. And the other thing that happens is based on the environment in a place, there's essentially reflection, right? The reflection of the waves is created. And when a reflection of waves is created, it can do two things, right? It either creates an echo or it creates a reverberation. So let's take a look at what is echo. If you guys ever been in big mountains or like a cave or something like that, I'm sure you've tested this and experienced it, right? Yelling hello or something against a a mountain, you will get the echo back, right? So what you'll do is you hear your own voice coming back to you few seconds later, slightly lighter, right? So what conditions do you need to have for this to happen? There has to be a large mountain or a canyon wall, something like that, at least 17 meters or 55 feet away from you. And the reason for that is because you need the travel time of the sound wave to be more than 0.1 seconds for you to experience echo or to create echo, right? So that's kind of how that looks like. And here's kind of, you know, what it might sound like. This is just me recreating a what you might look like yelling in the mountains. Anyway, so now let's look at reverb, right? So the reverb is usually we experience it indoors, right? Because the opposite conditions are true. The walls are all around us, and also they're most likely less than 17 meters away. So what's happening is the comeback or the reflection, right, reaches our ear much quicker. So they're really, really close to each other. And so what happens is we experience that as what you guys understand, or we all understand as an reverb, right? And so why, right? What's so magical about these 17 meters? Like, why does it sound so different when we make that change? Well, I put down two answers for you here. One is the long technical one, one short. The short answer is because of the brain. So the medium answer is that your brain needs at least 0.1 seconds in between the sounds to recognize it as distinct two words. If it's any less than that, what it essentially does, your brain will experience it or read it as one prolonged word, right? So that's what the reverb is. It has all to do with the sound memory. Essentially, if the old memory is still in there before the new one comes in, it just is perceived as one longer word instead of two. So that's about it. There's nothing different is happening as far as physics goes. We just experience it different. And the last final thing is as far as terms go is conditions called anechoic conditions, right? What is that? You hardly ever hear this word, you know, but it's important to understand this concept is when it's free from echo. You know, we almost, we spend so much time indoors and we almost never get to like experience what that looks like. But if you think of like an open field with no, you know, fence next to you, or the mountain we've just been talking about, but just an open space, that essentially you speaking, it doesn't have a surface to bounce off of. That's essentially what would echoeless or anechoic experience would be like, right? So what's happening is you're speaking, the sound waves still do the same thing, right? They're traveling, but they're just traveling and they'll die off, and they die off because they didn't get any surface in their way to force them go back. The human version, or like the way we can create anechoic condition indoors, is by creating anechoic chamber. You can see that here. You know, as you can see, it's a very complex process or complex looking building. It's literally the whole entire thing. It's covered in a highly sun absorptive material that's also shaped in a way, and you see it's like these sharp triangles. So really, essentially, you're doing, and if you've taken these classes before, or if you, and I'm sure you know a lot of these, is essentially you're doing two things. One is try to create as much sound absorption as possible, plus avoid any flat hard surfaces, right? So there's no flat surfaces, because those two things is what creates a reverb or an echo. So, you know, you guys know I love Professor Ehrman. I love his series of architectural acoustical videos. So let me show you this one. that kind of ties together what we talked about.
So can we please answer my original question? Why does it sound different when we speak outside than inside?
Put on your headphones so that this demonstration isn't contaminated by the uncontrolled character of the room you're sitting in. All right, imagine a scenario with a source and receiver outside in a free field with no reflecting surfaces nearby. It would sound something like this.
In language, infinitely many words can be written with a small set of letters.
Now, put a few walls in.
In language, infinitely many words can be written with a small set of letters.
Now enclose it totally.
In language, infinitely many words can be written with a small set of letters.
Can we play those again?
In language, infinitely many words can be written with a small set of letters. In language, infinitely many words can be written with a small set of letters. In language, infinitely many words can be written with a small set of letters.
We can watch the sound move through these enclosure conditions using ray tracing. We'll use the ray or line model to represent sound. Though it omits the frequency differences and multi-directionality content of sound, this is good for showing propagation and reflection. Starting with the free field, we can model the paths the sound takes from the source to the receiver.
That's it? I mean, just a straight shot?
Yep, the free field is an anechoic environment.
Wait. What?
Without an echo.
Ah, okay, I get it.
In the absence of reflecting surfaces, the direct sound is the only kind of sound arriving at the listener. It arrives at the listener sometime after the source creates it, the delay pursuant to the distance between the source and the receiver. And with a single surface added, say the ground plane in an outdoor environment, we see the direct sound followed by the reflected sound off the plane. Adding a second reflective surface, we see the direct sound followed by reflections off the floor and wall. They've arrived later than the direct sound because they've traveled farther.
Right, because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Right, so the reflected sound arrives later than the direct sound. Also, some of the sound energy has been lost to the surfaces, sound transmission through the material, and sound absorption in the material. So the reflected sounds not only arrive later, but weaker. The sound has undergone the twin phenomenon of time and attenuation. In this case, we've chosen smooth concrete as our simulated surfaces, so only a tiny portion of the sound impinging on those two surfaces is either lost to transmission or absorption. Almost everything then is reflected.
Yeah, 98%. So 2 surfaces begets 2 reflections.
No, we've only looked at the one bounce reflections called first order reflections. There are reflection paths that include more than one surface. Well, let's look at second order reflection.
Well, that arrives later than the first order reflections, because it's traveled farther, and is weaker than the first order reflections because it's hit 2 surfaces instead of 1.
In this case, yes. On average, higher order reflections are weaker and arrive later than first order reflections. When taken in aggregate, this is how indoor sound lingers for just a bit, just enough that you can sense it, then fades.
In some rooms, it lingers longer than just a bit. But I wanted to see how complicated it gets with total enclosure.
It's complicated, but not very complex. If you can follow the concept behind the partially enclosed room, you can follow the concept behind the fully enclosed room. There are just orders of magnitude more paths for sound to take and still arrive at the receiver loud enough to be audible. We can start with the first order reflections. Then higher multi-order reflections until the sound level of the reflections, weakened by successive impacts on the surfaces that absorb sound, is either below the noise floor in the room or below the threshold of hearing altogether.
All right, so I hope that made sense. It's a lot of the stuff we've talked about before, right? You add flat, hard surfaces into a space, and suddenly you are dealing with the reflection. All right, I have a question for you, just so I don't feel like I'm here all alone talking to myself. The first one is, how would you define anechoic? So let's launch the poll. So the choices are free from echo, causing echo. I think that's a band from the 80s. And I've never heard that term used before. All right, this is just, to see if you're paying attention or if I already lost you. Okay, yeah, so you guys are paying attention. This is awesome. Thank you, I appreciate it. So we had about 75% of you respond, and everyone got it right. Yay, that's amazing. That's great. Thank you guys for doing it. Yeah, so yes, it's a funny, funky word. That just means void of echo, and we probably never use it because almost nothing is ever void of echo, right? That's very hardly ever will we deal with it. So I threw this crazy slide here, which I just gotta let you know, this is not what we're trying to teach here, right? This is just to show you guys how much reverberation, reflection, echo matters to and affects our experience, right? So this is sort of the on the scale of the most important, right? So if let's say you're building a music performance hall, and if you look at this chart, which I had to include this because I was like, this I did not know, this is absolutely amazing, is that when you are building orchestra hall or something, there's actually different reverberation to optimize for, let's say, Tchaikovsky's performance versus Beethoven or Mozart opera, right? You can kind of see where they are listed, right? So this is absolutely amazing, right? How much that matters, right? And so when you look at something like where everything matters, like a concert hall, here's just 3 random photos that I chose. You can see there's really very, very little flat surfaces, right? Because you do actually want some reflection. You actually want, because you also need to create amplification, right? You need so people in further seats can hear, but it cannot be from flat walls, right? That all it does is distorts it, right? But you do want to create that. So this is, obviously for this is what you hire an acoustician for. Actually, probably an entire team of acousticians that have PhDs in physics, right? And that is just one, extreme case of acoustics and doing it right. However, we will be talking about to kind of wrap up what we do and how we address it is more the day-to-day spaces that we spend time in, because it matters in those as well, right? It can very much affect how we feel, how we perform, how healthy we stay. And we've addressed that in a bunch of our classes previously. So you've seen this chart or similar charts to this that kind of shows you what kind of reverberation is appropriate for different spaces. We won't be talking about echo anymore. Echo is just to better understand what reverb is, but that's an outdoor phenomenon which we don't encounter as much. If you look at this, it's we can see that the more important the clarity of human speech, the lower the reverberation needs to be. So you can kind of think about, okay, what is this space going to be used for? If it's going to be a studio or a classroom, the reverberation time needs to be as short as possible, and it goes from there. With talking about reverb, I as looking through information that I want to include and see what's new out there. Everything you look at, everything you touch, you certainly see how much has the last couple of years affected how we work, how we learn, and really everything else, right, during the COVID times. Well, I can tell you hybrid work or remote work is here to stay, which is not bad, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is, right? I think actually it's probably somewhere in the middle where you have a little more choices and flexibility. It's actually probably a good thing. You're probably familiar with a group called Overbuilding Institute. That's one of the most respected groups around that focus on very much setting standards to create the healthy healthy buildings. You know, and what they're doing is a few things that are interesting. OSHA has always regulated industrial sector and required you know, ear protections, but we haven't really seen that in the corporate world. However, now for the first time you start seeing, it's like, okay, wait a minute, we know sound affects people. Now we're adding a setup where people might easily end up wearing a headset for full 8 hours. Like, what does that mean for our hearing, right? So that's definitely a really interesting change. The other change that that we've seen is that the latest version of WELL actually defines and requires that spaces do have 4 types of work environments, and they are different than they used to be, right? So the work environments now are, you know, for focused work, which we all know, you know, don't distract me, I am, you know, one with my thoughts working on something complex. Collaborative, you know, conference room, open spaces, things like that. Collaborative, hybrid, it's sort of, again, we're discussing something, imagine discussing something, you know, with someone on your computer, or conference room with some people on the screen as well. And then there's also solely virtual. You know, all these things, you know, that some needs have changed, some things stayed the same, but overall, you know, we've definitely had issues with the corporate world that we are probably overbuilding for collaboration and underbuilding for focus work, you know, when you kind of look at what people are talking about. And now we added extra difficulty level with people potentially being remote or remote sometimes, and it's just a mix and match of it all that plays into what to do. So let's look at some of the spaces, office, schools, hospitals, and all that we've talked about, right? First thing we've touched, and I kind of separated it here for into the groups and maybe some additional spaces that well defined, right? Like, what does the virtual hybrid thing need? What does the collaboration space needs? And I'm providing some Reverb numbers to sort of tell you what's going on. I couldn't help myself. I had to put a guy in underwear here, just, you know, because, hey, listen, the working from home is here to stay. I guess pants are optional. But acoustics isn't. I guess that's my point. What I'm essentially just trying to say is, and this is something everyone can relate to, is, you know, if you look at the middle picture, the guy's talking to all of those folks, right? Let's say they're all communicating. Everyone's rooms acoustics will define what that whole conversation is going to be like, right? So and there's few other things to it, right? So if let's say you have a group of folks in a conference room, and the conference room acoustically is sound, but the individuals on the phone may be, you know, really echoey space, or they're doing something, you know, it's so hard to hear them. But the reverse is as terrible. If you experience it, I have many times, which can get quite frustrating, which is that the conference room has poor acoustics, and what happens is 1 or 2 people start talking and you cannot understand a word. The reason that is happening is, without going into the weeds, is that because we're adding technology reads sound as sound, right? It doesn't separate between, hey, this is the direct sound, this is the reflective sound, you know, it's kind of all together and we can't hear it. So that's one. And also the thing you've probably experienced is that you are trying to say something and you can't break through, right? Because it's just their room is so badly set up that they just can't hear even that you're talking, right? So all of those things really do not make it for happy, healthy, and efficient a work setup, right? And the last thing is speaking into microphones helps. Proper lighting and the background acoustic can certainly help with creating a professional experience. I mean, if you do talk to a lot of customers, or you're an educator, there's some research that I was reading that what's in your background when it's so it can be so distracting that people actually don't listen to what you say, right? So there's all those things that kind of matter, and obviously sound absorption, like you can see here, can make, small amount too, can really make a big difference. It's just your voice will come through much clearer, much crisper, and you can get folks to focus on you a little longer, because there is a term where you get actually tired from over focusing, right? So you kind of stop listening. So here's some other more focused areas, right, in like a more traditional places. This is essentially you recreating how can I create some divisions of space, essentially your nook or cranny, where you have some privacy, right, where you don't feel like you're being watched, and also the sound around you is not interrupting your flow of thoughts. Obviously collaborative spaces is a little different. We were talking about conference rooms. Again, adding the technology we spoke with, they actually have to be even more vigilant that our conference rooms do sound as they're supposed to. So for conference rooms, 0.8 is probably good. For open spaces, 1.2 up to 1.2 sounds good. It's kind of a little more livelier. It's supposed to feel like it has a little bit of a life, so you don't necessarily need to have it so quiet where people end up feeling like they need to whisper. And what I'm showing you, as you guys always know, this is just ultimately, practically, it's only about the ratio between hard surfaces and soft surfaces to have the correct reverb. Here you just have okay, well, you can get there so many different ways. Combination between walls and ceilings, or wall ceilings lighting, or some dividers and things like that. It's certainly a way to get to what you need to really make impactful difference. So another pop quiz, quick question for you guys here. This one is, I'm curious to see what you guys think. What percentage of workers do you think are happy with their workplace acoustics? Right, so the choices are 80% is happy, 53% is happy, 34% is happy, or 25%. So let's see what you guys think. Yeah, okay. You guys are good. You guys are good, or you don't think very highly of our acoustical performance in our offices, one or the other, or maybe both. Yeah. Okay, so 67% of you guys said it's 34%, and 33% said it's 25%. Yeah, I know. The two worst, the two top ones got 0. Nobody even touched those, right? Nobody thinks even 53% of people will be happy. Well, guess what? It's a bad thing, but it's also a good thing. You know your stuff. You're absolutely correct. Only 33.4% on the latest Lessman Index report stated that they're happy with their with the noise level of their office. So you can see it's very low. And I suspect that with people working from home and realizing, maybe sometimes for the first time how much more efficient, effective they can be without the distraction of sound, You know, we might potentially even put up with less, right? When we all return. I absolutely love that the only thing that performed worse is people walking past your workstation. And honestly, I do feel like those are kind of adjacent to each other, right? Because we're talking about distraction, right? You're talking about somebody constantly walking by. It's, you know, it's activating your fight or flight. Both of those things are doing that. But you guys know, if you're taking our CEUs, and really that's not the time to be to feel that way when you're trying to make something. Let's talk about hallways. You know, those things, hallways do get overlooked, and because, you know, you think, oh, you're just gonna walk through there, no big deal. Well, here's the thing about hallways. If your hallways are echoey, you will make all the offices or classes that are adjacent to it loud as well. You know, as we talk about this whole waves and reverb and everything else, right? We're essentially talking about energy, right? And if your hallways it's all hard surfaces, you're having such an accumulation of energy, it has to go somewhere, right? That's what that extreme reverb is like, right? That the accumulation of noise. So guess what happens? That's how you get the spillage, if you will, into the offices and classroom that are adjacent to the hallway. So fix your hallways, and you will fix your rooms right by it. Here's just other beautiful options that you can do for your, you know, open spaces, hallway spaces that you can do. Like I said, love doing ceilings, because ceilings will give you the most performance. I love doing walls because it's perfect for when, you know, the ceiling is set and something maybe a little less complex to install. Public space is the same thing. 0.7 to 1.2 reverb is a good one. You know, it's kind of livelier. But it's not like your voice will carry through the whole space, but you also don't feel like you will be whispering and things like that. And, you know, I'm just going through here you can see all the possibilities, you know, sky's the limit to what you can do. Restaurants, you know, restaurants is an interesting one. It kind of also, it depends what kind of restaurant it is. And you probably noticed that, right? You're trying to, I mean, everywhere we're supposed to try to create an atmosphere, right? And some sort of a feeling. It's even more so about restaurants, right? So if you think of something that's really intimate, probably expensive, you know, the lights will be really low and the reverb will be very low, right? Because it feels almost like, oh, this feels like a hug, right? Really cozy, very luxurious, right? But then if you want to create sort of more of a dynamic place where it feels like a lot of activity and things like that, you go a little higher. I'm sure you guys all would agree with me. We do have so many places that actually make amazing food you would like to hang out in that are so loud that you simply cannot be in. There's few around my house like that, where, you know, everything in there is like metal and concrete and everything like that, and it's so incredibly loud. I mean, I don't know, but I would guess that they are easily at 3 seconds or even higher of reverberation. You know, so it's definitely could use a lot of work to help. Hotels, right? Hotel lobbies, I think they kind of follow similar rule. More boutique, small, intimate place, you would want the reverb a little lower, and then kind of a more spacious thing, you can go a little higher for just like, you know, it's 1.1 to 1.6, something like that. Schools, you know, this is actually one of my favorite subjects to teach. We've done a few CEOs and mini classes on this. It follows the rule, right? In schools, we're exchanging ideas, which means a clarity of speech is paramount, which means the reverb needs to be low. And the younger the kiddo, the lower the reverb needs to be. And we kind of go a lot into that, but yeah, there's a lot of help and a lot of work, good work we can do in those. Libraries, you know, again, that sort of fits within the schools. 0.5, 0.7, it's about where you want to be. You know, again, anything where you're supposed to focus, you don't want the distractions. So that is it for the class. I hope, we've talked about reverb and all this stuff so many different ways. I hope there was something in there that helps you explain to your customers what to do. I know you guys know that our estimators do a fantastic job to help you figure out what it is, but sometimes, just having few phrases and few things to really make your customer comfortable why it is important before they get to experiences. I always found that very helpful. Upcoming class, we're kind of done with this schooly education-y thing for one. I'm gonna do probably what you guys find a little more exciting. We will be reintroducing 14.6.8. I'm so excited about this class. So for the last few months, we have been working really hard at with these guys with redesigning their products so we can use the 9mm material instead of the 12. Really, for only reason is they both actually perform acoustically identically. Just the thing is that the 12mm material is like twice as expensive, right? So making this change and this redesign and changing everything around it is allowing us to realize substantial savings that we will be passing on to you guys, right? So we want to reintroduce you to all the products. We will be introducing a few other products. I think you will be shocked how much we were able to move the needle to make 14.6.8 designs more accessible. So I think I'm really excited to do that. Plus, we'll be showing you a few other products we're adding from their offering. And I do believe that the two, Frankie and Danielle, the two founders of the company, might be able to join us. So I hope you can join us too. They both have fun accents, so if you like accents, there'll be lots of accents. And the class will be on Wednesday, April 20th, the first one at 10 and the second one 1 p.m. Central. All right, so that is it for me. If you guys have any questions, please do let me know. I am just quickly going to give you the ability to unmute yourself. So if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can write it into the question section of GoToWebinar. All right. Oh, just guys, just so you know, my morning, so I have a new puppy. She's extremely cute, but I already have another puppy too. And during the first class, they decided they're gonna dig out a big hole in the backyard and then come back here to show me how proud they are. So they're mostly white. They came back mostly black. So this class, I have to tell you guys, you probably got a way better performance because that was so distracting. Yeah, it was a mayhem this morning. Anyway, thank you again. You know where to catch us if you'd like a copy of this presentation because there's something that you think your customers will want or something you want to review again. We will be happy to send it to you. You know, Lisa, our marketing manager, she's so organized and she will get it out for you guys. Any acoustical questions, you can certainly reach out to me or our estimators to help you figure out the best product to offer. Thank you guys again, and we will talk soon.